Home is Where You Left It by Adam Chase. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Home is Where You Left It by Adam Chase. Recording by Mark Nelson. Only the shells of deserted mud-brick houses greeted Steve Cantwell when he reached the village. He poked around in them for a while. The desert heat was searing, parching, and the Syrian sun gleamed balefully off the blades of Steve's unicopter, which had brought him from Oasis City almost 500 miles away. He had remembered heat from his childhood here on Sirius' second planet with the Earth colony, but not heat like this. It was like a magnet drawing all the moisture out of his body. He walked among the buildings, surprise and perhaps sadness etched on his gaunt, weather-beaten face. Childhood memories flooded back. The single well from which all the families drew their water, the mud-brick house, hardly different from the others, and just 4 walls and a roof now, in which he lived with his aunt after his parents had been killed in a Kumaji raid, the community center where he'd spent his happiest time as a boy. He went to the well and hoisted up a pailful of water. The winch creaked as he remembered. He ladled out the water, suddenly very thirsty, and brought the ladle to his lips. He hurled the ladle away. The water was bitter, not brackish. Poisoned. He spat with fury, then kneeled and stuffed his mouth with sand, almost gagging. After a while, he spat out the sand too, and opened his canteen and rinsed his mouth. His lips and mouth were paralyzed by contact with the poison. He walked quickly across the well square to his aunt's house. Inside it was dim, but hardly cooler. Steve was sweating, the saline sweat making him blink. He scowled, not understanding. The table was set in his aunt's house. A coffee pot was on the stove, and last night's partially consumed dinner still on the table. The well had been poisoned, the town had been deserted on the spur of the moment, and Steve had returned to his boyhood home from Earth, too late for anything. He went outside into the square. A lizard was sunning itself and staring at him with lidless eyes. When he moved across the square, the lizard scurried away. "Earthman!" a quavering voice called. Steve ran toward the sound. In the scant shadow of the community center, a Kumaji was resting. He was a withered old man, all skin and bones, and sweat-stiffened tunic, with enormous red-rimmed eyes. His purple skin, which had been blasted by the merciless sun, was almost black. Steve held the canteen to his lips and watched his throat working almost spasmodically to get the water down. After a while, Steve withdrew the canteen and said, "What happened here?" "They're gone, all gone." "Yes, but what happened?" "The Kumaji." "You're Kumaji." "This is my town," the old man said. "I lived with the Earthmen. Now they're gone." "But you stayed here." "To die," the old man said, without self-pity. "I'm too old to flee, too old to fight, too old for anything but death. More water." Steve gave him another drink. "You still haven't told me what happened." Actually, though, Steve could guess. With the 22nd century Earth population hovering at the 11 billion mark, colonies were sought everywhere, even on a parched desert wasteland like this. The Kumaji tribesmen had never accepted the colony as a fact of their life on the desert, and in a way, Steve could not blame them. It meant one oasis less for their own nomadic sustenance. When Steve was a boy, Kumaji raids were frequent. At school on Earth and Luna, he'd read about the raids, how they'd increased in violence, how the Earth government, so far away and utterly unable to protect its distant colony, had suggested withdrawal from the Kumaji desert settlement, especially since a colony could exist there under only the most primitive conditions, almost like the purple-skinned Kumaji natives themselves. "When did it happen?" Steve demanded. "Last night." It was now mid-afternoon. "3 folks died," the Kumaji said in his almost perfect English, "from the poisoning of the well. The well was the last straw. The colonists had no choice. They had to go, and go fast, taking what little water they had left in the houses." "Will they try to walk all the way through to Oasis City?" Oasis City, built at the confluence of 2 underground rivers which came to the surface there and flowed the rest of the way to the sea above ground, was almost 500 miles from the colony. 500 miles of trackless sands and 130-degree heat. "They have to," the old man said, "and they have to hurry. Men, women, and children. The Kumaji are after them." Steve felt irrational hatred then. He thought it would help if he could find some of the nomadic tribesmen and kill them. It might help the way he felt, he knew, but it certainly wouldn't help the fleeing colonists, trekking across a parched wilderness to the safety of Oasis City, or death. "Come on," Steve said, making up his mind. "The unicopter can hold 2 in a pinch." "You're going after them?" "I've got to. They're my people. I've been away too long." "Say, you're young Cantwell, aren't you? Now I remember." "Yes, I'm Steve Cantwell." "I'm not going anyplace, young fellow." "But you can't stay here, without any good water to drink, without—" "I'm staying," the old man said, still without self-pity, just matter-of-factly. "The Earth folks have no room for me, and I can't blame them. The Kumaji'll kill me for a renegade, I figure. I've lived a good, long life. I've no regrets. Go after your people, young fellow. They need every extra strong right arm they can get. You've got any weapons?" "No," Steve said. "Too bad. Well, goodbye, and good luck." "But you can't—" "Oh, I'm staying. I want to stay. This is my home. It's the only home I'll ever have. Good luck, young fellow." Slowly, Steve walked to his unicopter. It was nothing more than a small metal disc on which to stand and a shaft with 4 turbo blades. It could do 60 miles an hour at an elevation of 2,000 feet. Steve turned the little turbojet engine over, then on impulse ran back to the old man and gave him his canteen, turning away before it could be refused, and striding quickly back to the unicopter and getting himself airborne without looking at the deserted village or the old man again. The old man's voice called after him. "Tell the people, hurry! The Kumaji looking for them to kill. Desert wind ought to wipe out their trail, but hurry!" The voice faded into the faint rushing sound of the hot desert wind. Steve gazed down on the bare, sun-blasted rock, on rippled dunes, on hate haze. He circled wider and wider, seeking his people. Hours later, he spotted the caravan in the immensity of sand and wasteland. He brought the unicopter down quickly, with a rush of air and a whine of turbojets. He alighted in the sand in front of the slow-moving column. It was like something out of Earth's Middle East, and Middle Ages. They had even imported camels for their life here on the Syrian desert, deciding the Earth camel was a better beast of burden than anything the Sirius II wastelands had to offer. They walked beside the great, humped beasts of burden, the animals piled high with the swaying baggage of their belongings. They moved through the sands with agonizing slowness. Already, after only 1 day's travel, Steve could see that some of the people were spent and exhausted and had to ride on camelback. They had gone perhaps 15 miles, with almost 500 to go, across searing desert, the Kumaji seeking them.